from Unified Field Radio himself, Justin Brown. Welcome to Skywatchers Radio, my friend.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, I guess, depending on when or where you're watching or listening to this show.
That is correct, my friend. And you're joining us from where? Tell the audience where you're at tonight.
I'm on the east coast of Canada, calling in from Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Oh, nice. Stan Freeman lives out there, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's the next province over. He's from he's living in New Brunswick there in Fredericton.
Oh, really? Very cool.
Very cool. Have you been out to visit Stan at all?
I'm in New Brunswick all the time. I'm always traveling over there, but I've never gone specifically to see him. I usually run into Stan down at the Shag Harbor Conference in August down here on the South Shore.
He's an awesome, awesome gentleman, Stanton Freeman. I love that dude. I've had him on the show a couple times, and he's like actually one of the best people to interview. Obviously, he's an expert on Roswell, and that's one of the greatest topics in ufology. That's the one everybody talks about. But just overall, even in private, just having a conversation with Stanton Friedman is always cool.
Well, I think he's super. He's a super amazing guest because not only is he really knowledgeable about everything in ufology, but he's just a really nice, down to earth guy.
Yeah, he's well spoken, very well.
Yeah, he's very well spoken, and if he's got the time, he'll chit chat with you as long as he can.
Oh, he definitely. It's funny because we had him on a show once. I think it was like on Unraveling the Secrets, and I was producing the show. And after the show ended, I mean, we just kept talking with him and Dennis and myself, and for like another 30 minutes, and it was just chit chat, like off the air, just friendly banter. And again, one of the nicest people in ufology. Really, really enjoy his company and love his work. I mean, what an amazing amount of work he's done since he joined the whole UFO community, huh?
Oh,
Seriously.
Man, he's been at it for so long. First of all, I guess anybody who's done it as long as he has and has half the brains that he has I would hope, should have some sort of amount of information to give to the world about the subject. He's a super amazing guy. Knows a lot of his chops. But, I mean, some people say that... he's not completely on top of his game because there's some folks that don't really believe in the documents that have come forward about MJ12.
We got into that with Alejandro Rojas recently. There's the Mirage Men film that is debunking all that stuff. But here's the thing: Stan Freeman is a researcher, right? Let's just say that as a researcher, you're gathering all the information that is there at your disposal, and you're writing the books or whatever you're doing, putting documentaries together based on the information that is out there to the public. It's not his fault somebody else was hoaxing stuff. You know what I mean? So I don't really blame it on him so much. But there's a lot of flack that's coming his way and the way of a lot of people because of that movie Mirage Men. But even that movie's kind of suspect, don't you think? And I was even kind of like talking to Alejandro about that because the guy's coming forward saying that he hoaxed all this stuff, but who's not to say that he's not just being shut up by the secret shadow government or something?
Well, I haven't seen it yet, so don't give me any spoilers.
No spoilers. I just started watching it myself there the other night, and I haven't finished it either. But yeah, I mean, who knows, right? I mean, it could be any clandestine, group or agency that are trying to throw a monkey wrench in this thing. That's the way it usually has been. I mean, the UFO field is, as much as it's filled with good information, there's a lot of disinformation that's been thrown into the mix to throw people off the scent and off the trail.
Yep, and that's something that we love to get into here on the show is the disinformation that's out there, and how to spot it and how to debunk it, and not that we're debunkers, but there is a lot of clutter and mess in the world of ufology. And I know that on your show you've had a lot of people on. You did Unified Field Radio. Tell us a little bit of your background doing that show and some of your favorite guests that you've had on.
Well, I guess the way it all started for me, I would say that it started from a UFO sighting of, in my early life when I was 9, but it actually goes further back than that, and maybe I'll touch upon that in a bit. But my mother was always very well read in the areas of the occult and the unknown, and she always had really cool stuff in her library, like George Orwell's 1984, and she always had a book on UFOs or flying saucers. She was also a fundamentalist, basically, near the end of her life. There's been a bit of history. There's some stories in the family on her side that she was a little bit psychic, that my aunt might be a little bit psychic, and who knows how far back it goes. My aunt to this day, tells me that she receives visions and paints them, which is kind of unusual. She paints her visions, and that's how they come through for her. So I guess, from an early age, I was kind of introduced to the idea that the world is more magical and mystical than, most people think or understand that it is. That was the beginning. And later in life, like I said, I was on a fishing trip out here. I've grown up all over kind of the place. I spent some years in California and Toronto and out west in Canada and the U.S. But, my first few years I was in Cape Breton. But when I came back later in life, around 9 years old, this is a little island off the coast here in Nova Scotia. My sister and I and my father were fishing, and I saw a humongous fireball coming in through the sky. It felt like it was the size of the full moon, but it was probably about half that size. And we watched it coming down to the sky. I alerted my sister and my father, and they caught wind of it just as it was coming over the treetops and down into the woods. And it looked like it should have landed somewhere or hit or made an impact at some point just beyond the horizon. My father said that he had called the authorities. No one had seen the object or tracked the object. We all clearly saw it. So that was kind of my first foray. I was about 9 years old at that point. So starting with the roots of my mother, who was basically I guess she was the genetic line of a family of Hungarian and German acrobats that traveled the world, and her occult beginnings and understandings, and all the way up to that fishing trip when I was age 9, kind of indoctrinated me into the whole field. I've had a few more sightings of strange things since then, but that kind of led to me eventually culminating in starting my own show locally here at a university radio station.
So it all started at the university. Now, how long have you been doing the show?
Well, I'm kind of on sabbatical from that right now.
Yes, you are.
Angel, like you can invest so much time and effort into this field that is very, fruitless financially. It's really difficult. You're never going to make a dime in this field unless you're
you're lucky if you break even. I mean,
Yeah.
you're super lucky if you break even. You're super lucky if you can get anything to pay for itself.
Even if you're Giorgio Tsoukalos, you're probably not making anything. His hairspray alone would cost enough. Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder he should get royalties for all the memes they put up with his face on it.
yeah, they should. You should really do that.
I wonder how much he gets paid to actually be on Ancient Aliens and all these shows that he's on. Because, of course, they pay him at least a little bit of scratch.
Do you think?
They have to. I mean, he's the show. I mean, these people are the ones that go on there. They make the show.
I hope so.
People on there.
They use his likeness. A lot of the show is
well,
modeled after
I'm sure we could
him.
reach out to Bill Burns and ask how much they make, for the show.
Bill was the first guy I thought about.
But how it usually works with a lot of these shows on the Hitler Channel is oh, I'm sorry, I did it again, didn't I? Sorry.
No, you're correct. Go ahead. Continue.
It is, because at 2:00 every single day during the week, it is always something on Hitler's World War II, something or other.
You're not kidding. That's true.
And that's why I call it the Hitler Channel, because I'm too damn tired of it.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, if anybody from the History Channel is listening, switch it up a little. But if you think about it, a lot of these people put their time into doing the show and creating the show, and what they really do is they don't get paid for making the show, but the way they sell it to a network is that they get a piece of the commercials that are being aired inside the show. So it's very possible that none of them are getting paid up front, but they're getting their royalty checks at the end of every episode airing.
That would make sense. I mean, if anybody would know, it would be the business-savvy Bill Burns, right? He would be a cool guy to talk about if we were curious enough.
Well, I don't know. Is anybody that we know that's related to him in the chat room today? I'm not looking right now.
No, Nancy's not in there, so we can't ask her. But, I could always bring it up to Nancy in private and see what her answer would be.
Yeah, come on, let's get it. Let's get it totally.
I know when they did UFO Hunters, I know he told me once that they weren't really getting paid a whole lot of money. I think, just they were covering like the trips and stuff like that, and maybe a couple $500, $600, $500-600, $1,000 maybe a month or something, or every few weeks. I don't know. I mean, I'm not too sure on the logistics of how much they were getting paid, but he said it wasn't a whole lot. And that was for UFO Hunters, which was a very good show. I mean, they never caught really anything. They really didn't. But it was still fun. It was a funny show to watch.
One or two seasons?
Oh, it was great.
I don't remember. Did they last 1 or 2 seasons?
I think 2
it was
seasons.
A couple, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, 2 seasons, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good show. It really was. You know, it was funny because doing a show of Feature Theater with Bill and Nancy and producing for them and stuff and sitting in and listening to them go back and forth. Yeah, Bill is a very funny dude. He just doesn't know it. Like, he missed the boat. He should have been like a stand-up comic because he can be really funny and he doesn't go like, all the way with it. And Nancy too, like they have this really good way of bouncing back and forth.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. So
yeah, they have a really fun
shout out
show.
to them. Yeah,
so
really
the next thing on PSN Radio, it's the UFO Funny Show.
Yeah.
Actually, I did have a UFO comedian named Jeff Tyranny or something like that. His name, Tim Tyranny, Jeff Tyranny, something like that. And he's actually the UFO comedian, and he was on my show a while back, like a year ago.
Wow.
And really not funny at all.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it.
He's never been back. He's a nice guy, but he's never been back.
Let's get a whole bunch of abductees in the audience and put a UFO comedian up on top and watch how easily he gets lynched.
Yeah, no, this guy, well, like I said, he's a nice guy, so I don't want to say bad things about him, but the jokes just were not there, man. And that's in the archive. Anybody wants to, check out that archive, you sure can. It's in there. I think it's in the Jackal's Head archive, so if you want to listen to that, it's on the jackalshead.com page.
That's funny.
There you go.
Yeah, Bill Burns is a super, hyper intelligent guy. I mean,
really is.
He knows a little bit of everything about everything. I mean, he's been involved in UFOs, TV, radio, television. I think wasn't he involved in the breaking of? Yeah, he worked for a television station when the Kecksburg event happened in the '60s, and he reported it. I mean, that's how far back he goes in the UFO field, without even directly being involved. Maybe, right? He goes way back. He's a funny guy. He's very cerebral.
Yeah, he is.
Huge fan of UFO Hunters and Future Theater, of course.
Talking to him, though, it's funny because we kind of are on the same page on the hatred for, like, a lot of the hoaxing that goes on in ufology. And, of course, you kind of got to deal with it. And, there's a lot of people that we interview that are either abductees or contactees or people that have brought forth videos on YouTube or whatever. And, when you see a lot of the stuff that are clear hoaxes and these people are getting fame out of it, it is a little bit upsetting because it's bad for ufology. You know what I mean? It's bad for the overall field of what we're putting together and as everybody is investigating or has been investigating for the last, 40 years now. So there's certain things that, you just kind of have to deal with. But, on your show, for example, I know you've had a lot of guests on your show in the past. Has there been any guest that just kind of like irked you? Like, man, this person is such a hoaxer, such a faker. Because, we don't like to bash anybody, but, you can always kind of tell when you're interviewing somebody who's on the money and who's not. Well, not always, but sometimes you can. But has there been that one guest that after you've done the show and you're like, man, this guy is so full of it?
Well, first of all, guys, remember I'm from Canada. We're pretty nice up here.
This is true. So you wouldn't say, man, this guy's full of it. You would say, I don't think he's honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, we try to be fair and balanced and give everyone a fair shake when possible, and that's kind of the platform that I've always had with my show. I'd like to give, if people have something that they've been talking about that's fantastic, I'm not going to go ahead and support someone who's hoaxing something. If it's obvious, I'm not going to get involved. I don't want to have anything like that on my show. But sometimes in this type of field, it's impossible to know, who's hoaxing and who's not. You can tell a lot of the times, but you can't always tell. I spoke to, the biggest one of all, I guess, would have been probably not. Well, the Billy Meyer story is. Michael Horn was on the show, and he's a very animated guy.
My condolences. Yeah, he is.
Yeah, so he's the American representative of Billy Meyer, right? Everybody, I think, is aware of Michael Horn.
Yes.
And he's adamant that this thing happened. Even if he thinks it's a hoax, he's still spreading the gospel that it's not. There's a huge holes in Billy Meyer's story, obviously. There's a ton of it. There's... for one, is the ray gun. Like, the ray gun's there. Okay? Billy Meyer says he's got a ray gun, and then the people want to see the ray gun that the aliens gave him, and then guess what happens? The ray gun disappears conveniently, so no one can see this ray gun. I think it turned out, Angel, you and I were talking about it, it turned out to be like a toy gun that he had put together.
It was like from, you remember the 80s they had laser tag?
Yeah, exactly.
Toy guns?
It was just a modification of that.
Yeah, it was like he got one of the earlier versions and like he modified it, and nobody noticed the difference because nobody's I guess smart enough to notice that's laser tag.
Like,
I don't know.
yeah, exactly. I approached like Michael about a lot of this stuff when I was talking to him on the show about the Billy Meyer case. For instance, like the pictures that he said he had taken of dinosaurs that were obviously taking it
National Geographic,
exactly,
baby.
right out of the pages. You could see it; it's identical. And the twins that were on the late night, they were dancers on the late night talk show. Another. I can't remember what the name of the alien entity was supposed to be. It was very Norwegian sounding. Do you remember, Angel, what her name was? The dancer that he claimed to have seen?
Not really. Not
alien
off the top of my
name.
head, honestly.
Anyway, that's another one there that was just a blatant, obvious hoax.
Well, the one that got me was the one for you're talking about the Dean Martin dancer.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. Dean Martin. I cannot remember her name.
I'm trying to think of the alien name that he.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to think of. Also, and it's
right on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, I guess it doesn't.
Helga, Inga, Gretchen.
Basically,
yeah, that sounded exactly probably what the name would be.
There's just so many areas where I kept hitting him about. Yeah. I mean,
ask it.
So full of,
ask it.
Yes, exactly.
That's what it was. When in doubt, Google it out. That's my motto. It works every single time. Yeah. See, we don't have to have Alan make weird alien noises to, just pretend we know the name. No, it's Ask It. And this is a funny thing because I've had an ongoing battle with Michael Horn. He's my arch nemesis. I'm Superman and he's Lex Luthor. That's really what it is. And he's bald-headed too, so he can play that part. But anyway, we've had this ongoing drama between me and him because I was on a show one day. Well, he was on a show and I called in and I asked him, how do you explain the Billy Myers taking pictures of the Dean Martin dancers? Ask it. Come on, really? I've seen the video, man. That's a complete joke. I mean, and he blew up on air. And this was on a mutual friends show that we've had. You and I, Justin.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Jesse.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Randolph.
Yes, Mr. Jesse Randolph on his show. And he blew up on me. He told me off and all kinds of stuff. And we've gone back and email back and forth because he got really upset that I asked him a legit hard question on air as a caller.
Yeah.
And, it's funny how he blows up over it. But honestly, there's so much, so much information just to prove that Billy Myers has been lying. And the one line that they always use is which really makes me laugh. And you're going to laugh when I explain why, Justin. They use this line that, he's a one-armed man in Switzerland. How could he possibly do all the hoaxing himself? How could he possibly go out there and fool the world with, hoaxes? He couldn't possibly do it. He's a one-armed man. So he doesn't have a wife. He didn't have friends. Didn't have neighbors. Didn't have kids. He had nobody that could help him. Really? Really? Has anybody ever actually spoken to his wife, who admitted that the whole thing was a hoax?
Yeah. I have so many problems with the story. And I also had approached Michael Horn about all these areas, and he was very reactionary in the same way that he was with you, and I was very repulsed by that. This was a guy that was supposed to be a representative of this guy who believed his story, had faith in it, and yet he was reacting like a criminal, like he was hoaxing. He was involved in the hoax, and I was really turned off by it. And that's not to say that maybe at some point or there's something in the Billy Meyer story that's legit or true, but maybe he ran with the story once he got, once he felt. Maybe he could gain from it. Maybe he, and ran with it from there. I don't know. There may be some legitimate parts of the story. I just can't figure out where that the fact begins and the hoax begins. It's all very blurred. It looks all like it's a big made up story at this point.
Here's the thing. He was a photographer, right? He knows photography.
Mm-hmm.
We know that much. Anybody who knows photography can kind of figure out how to hoax a UFO on a picture. I mean, that's very easy. Cameras don't have great depth perception, especially older cameras in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. They were very easy to do something like with wires and stuff, and that's really what he was doing. But here's where I'm going with this. Let's just say that Billy Myers has been hoaxing this stuff the entire time. There is, I believe, and I'm not a scientist, so I can't, scientifically point to anything, but I do believe there is a psychosis with certain people like a Billy Myers who just want to do something to gain attention. And he might have done something and he saw how good it came out, and somebody saw it and gave him attention, and that drove him to make another picture and then another picture. And next thing you know, he's getting so much attention for his pictures that the psychosis takes over, and he starts just making videos and all kinds of things, and he's getting so much attention, and he's selling now maybe documentaries or books, and he's doing interviews, and he's getting paid for it, and this becomes a mini career for this guy.
That's true.
And this happens in ufology all the time. I've interviewed people where at the end of the day they have no evidence, no proof of anything. They're going on their story, and I ask them certain questions that lead me to believe that it's all done because they want attention. Unfortunately, in ufology, there is a lot of that. There's just people, a lot of people, especially a lot of the hoaxers, are doing it just because they want to get attention in some way, shape, or form. And this is something that really kills me also. I don't know if you've noticed this, Justin. Have you noticed how many failed musicians are in ufology?
I haven't noticed. I have not.
Okay,
But
David
I
Wilcox.
mean, there's always a lot of musicians involved.
David Wilcox, for example, he was a musician. David Wilcox didn't make it in music. He started doing the whole, I'm a reincarnated, whatever the dude's name was, Edgar Casey, right? I think it was the gentleman he claims he was reincarnated.
I had no idea you said that.
Yeah, and that's what he claims, that he's Edgar Casey's reincarnation and this and that, and he's going off on aliens and a tantrum on the future, and the guy is full of it. But the whole point is that he was a musician that didn't make it, and then as soon as he got a little fame from doing the whole UFO circuit and doing the paranormal circuit, guess what he started doing? He started putting music back out there. Huh? And in fact, there's a really funny video that when you look at it on YouTube, you're going to do two things. Anybody with a rational mind is going to look at these videos and they're going to say, this guy is bananas. He's doing a lecture talking about aliens and UFOs and Edgar Casey and yada yada and going on and on. And then he starts saying, and by the way, I'm also a musician. And he starts playing one of his songs, and he's standing there at the podium with the music's playing. He's like bobbing his head to his own music, like trying to get the crowd into it. And he's like and it's like the most idiotic thing I've ever seen on video, to be honest with you. And again, this is a person who completely just jumped the shark mentally, I think, and he couldn't make it in music, so he's using this as a platform to make it somehow and get some attention his way. And unfortunately, that happens a lot in ufology, and not only him. I can name other names, which I don't want to do because some of them are actually friendly with me. I don't want to lose certain contacts. David Wilcox, I have no desire to ever have on the show. I just no desire, so it doesn't matter.
I mean, we all know about David Wilcox, so how much of a failure can he have been?
Listen to his music. That's all I'm saying.
No, but I understand what you're saying.
Okay, so who's Willie Nelson a reincarnation of?
Edgar Casey, I believe, is the gentleman's name.
No, who is Willie Nelson a reincarnation of?
I don't know, but I'm pretty sure the guy smoked pot. By the way, quick plug, David Wilcox will be on Jimmy Church's show this week on the Dark Matter Radio Network. So there you go. Maybe he hears this rant and he's like, you know what? I really am Edgar Casey's reincarnation, and that Angel Espino guy is a jerk. Hey, it's okay, man. It's only radio.
It's okay. We all have issues. It's okay.
Yeah. Especially me. But hey, plug for Jimmy Church, by the way, on Dark Matter Radio Network. Listen to that. He actually has a good show, by the way, Jimmy Church.
Never heard it.
Does Jimmy Church wear Jimmy Choos?
Man, if I had cymbals right now, I'd just give you a drum roll now. That was good. That was a good setup and a good...
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Michael Horn probably is the biggest one of the people I've interviewed that would kind of be in that hoaxing kind of area. I mean, I spoke to a couple other people that, have very hard to swallow stories in a lot of ways. You and I talked about this before, Angel, but I've had Stan Romanek on the show too, and there are a lot of holes in his story, his reactions to his own videos, the way he tells them. I mean, I have his book. I've read his book. I've seen all the evidence. I mean, there's still a lot of evidence that he won't share with you because he wants you to,
because he hasn't finished the CGI. He hasn't finished the CGI work on him. That's
there's a lot of that. I mean, that when I first saw that alien, that's the first thing I thought of was CGI, and I approached him about that question. I said, Stan, what's the story on that? Like, it doesn't look real to me. And he said, well, you know what? I mean, that's fine. It was there. I recorded it. I said, it just doesn't. It looks like CGI or a puppet. Is it possible that something like that, that's what that video is? And he kind of got a little defensive about it, obviously. But he kind of the way he finished it was that, well, maybe someone was perpetrating a hoax on him. Maybe it was a puppet. You know, or
deflect,
maybe it was
deflect.
CGI in a way that he didn't understand, but there it is.
Well, there's only one way of doing CGI, and if he doesn't understand that, he's not doing CGI.
Okay, I got a question.
I mean,
for
unless
you
there's
guys.
a flat screen outside his window, right?
Okay, now
Yeah, but
here's
you would
an
notice that.
interesting question. Do you know what's the name? I don't remember the name of the guy from the 70s who said he met a future version of himself. He's from like Sweden or someplace, and he had actually 16mm film of himself.
Was it the
meeting
guy that was
himself.
crawling? He was crawling through like
under the
his
sink.
kitchen
Under
and
the
the
sink.
sink. Yeah. I saw this bald guy. Yeah, I saw that.
Anybody have a comment on that one? I've got no clue. Hoax, not a hoax.
Most likely-
Yeah,
most likely
that
a
is
hoax,
a crazy,
but-
awesome one, man. I remember when I first saw that, I was blown away. I was like, "Whoa! I really hope this is real."
No, I saw
I
that
think it's
debunked a long time ago. That's an old video, by the
I
way. I saw
figured
it
as much it was a promotion for another, a video production company or something.
No, there's actually, if you look at the video, there's certain ways you can look at it, and it debunks itself. Like when he's standing next to himself, that doesn't match properly certain things. But
Yeah.
the tattoos don't exactly match, and there's certain different things. But there's a video out there debunking that. I can't remember. That was a long time ago, so I just can't remember off the top of my head.
Who's to say for sure, though? I mean, people, this stuff could all be happening. That's kind of the point of the show that I had, when I was on the air there with CKDU locally and on Blog Talk and on Ufonaut and all that stuff that I did in the past, was that we live in a universe now that isn't finite anymore. It's infinite. So we really can't say that this stuff isn't happening. We kind of have to use our better judgment and maybe listen to the stories that people have to tell, because in the end, who really knows? I mean, when it's blatantly obvious, like things like the Billy Meyer case that I've
I can definitely tell you that there's no alien that looks like one of the Dean Martin dancers.
Well, maybe there is.
Maybe, but they didn't visit Billy
clone
Myers.
of an alien.
I forget.
Could it be?
There was a. Yeah, it could be. I mean, there was a contactee like from the 50s. Jeez, I wish I could remember his name right now. But he said he had sex with a beautiful redheaded woman from Venus or something, right? I mean, there's also all the stories of Pleiadians and Anunnaki.
Those are what we call early Trekkies. They're just having fantasies, man. That's all that was. Early Trekkies having fantasies after watching Star Trek.
I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but you can do that if you want. I don't know.
Let's get back to Stan real quick. To Stan Romanek,
cool.
Because he's gone into all kinds of trouble the last few months with the charges, and that in itself is terrible for ufology. But there's always that talk, and you said something earlier that kind of resonated with me. That's why I wanted to go back to this. You said that he thought that maybe they were playing a hoax on him, and somebody maybe was pranking him somehow.
Yeah.
I was willing to believe that myself for a long time, because I never believed the alien in the window was legit. And I'm honest, I even told Stan Romanek that. I told him, listen.
Yeah, I've always felt uneasy about it.
And I'm very transparent. You know that already from speaking to me. I'm very open about things, and if I feel something a certain way, I'm just going to tell you. And if you have a problem, we'll discuss it like men, and that's it. It'll end there. And I told him right off the bat, I was like, it doesn't look real to me, Stan. That's just my personal opinion. I never had a beef with him personally. I don't know the guy. I just interviewed him a couple times, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And in fact, he even invited me once when he was doing a conference here in Florida to go and meet him in person and his wife. I didn't end up going because I had other personal issues that I had to take care of, and I just couldn't make it out there. Yeah. Now I'm kind of happy I didn't go because of what he's facing. I don't want to get associated with any of that stuff. So who knows? Maybe what he was trying to lure me into with some nastiness. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. But anyway, so I was willing to believe and to go along with, maybe he's being hoaxed until I saw a video on YouTube, which I don't know if you've seen this, Justin. He's been interviewed by some guy, I think it's in Australia, and he starts hoaxing on video.
What do you mean?
Like Stan literally he perpetrates a hoax on the video. It's the craziest thing. It's a split screen. You see one side is the host who's asking the questions, and on the other side you see Stan. Stan, I guess, thought that the camera was only picking up certain parts of the video. He didn't know exactly how wide the video was on the actual screen that it was being recorded on. Right. And at one point, he flicks something at his face because he's claiming that he's having paranormal activity and that he's been having ghostly activity at the house. So he flicks like a pan or something at his face, and you can clearly see his hand flicking it. Like on the very bottom of the video, you can barely see it, but you can really see the finger flicking everything, and it hits him, and he's like, "What the hell was that?" And he starts pulling. If he was joking, it's gonna come out. But he starts looking around like he's really getting some paranormal activity happening, and he starts freaking out on the air. The host is like, "What was that, Stan?" And the host completely buys what's going on and follows
the host
along the
didn't
narrative.
see him flick.
The host, I don't think, saw him flick. He just saw something hit him. And then he's like, he literally is just following along on what Stan is talking about. And Stan is like, you see, it just keeps happening. There's so much activity, and you just saw it right now yourself. And then, like, a few minutes later, I guess the interview was getting kind of boring, and Stan might have been getting a little bored. And the next thing you know, a thumb drive goes flying in the air and hits him in the head. And this one was clearly his hand. I swear to you. Clearly you can see his hand just flicking the thumb drive at him, and they hit him right on the top of the head. And then the host is like, wait a second, I saw that. That was a thumb drive? What is that? And he starts freaking out again, like, oh my God, you saw that? What was that? And he's like looking around like, I don't know, it came out of nowhere. It came from up there. It didn't. It came from the bottom. He flicked it up, and you could see it. And that's when he lost me. And this is before the charges came up, by the way. But when I saw that video, I was like, okay, that's it. You know, I'm done with Stan Romanek. I mean, he was caught red-handed doing this thing. And the host had no idea because, again, the host is trying to, and I understand he's doing the technical stuff, which is the producing part of it. Plus, he's trying to do the interview, and he's trying to pay attention to what's going on in the video, and he's doing a lot of work. So I understand why he's not to catch little things like that.
He was spread too thin. He couldn't see it.
Right, he might not have noticed. He might have just see something, real quick or whatever, and then he just reacted to it like a normal person. But if you look at the video on YouTube and you freeze it and you fast forward or you slow it down and you do, your own observation of what's happening, it's clear that Stan was flicking things on his own to like make it look like he's having paranormal activity. And the fact that he sells it so expertly, I mean, he looked professionally, he was really,
I don't even know if he sells it expertly sometimes. He's just so blatantly, he just seems like he's acting sometimes,
This is what it was.
Badly acting,
yeah. But he's really trying to sell it, and that's when I was like, okay, he's just jumped the shark with me. I'm done with Stan Romanek. I mean, at that point, I couldn't take him serious anymore. And then, like, a week later, the charges came up of the whole child pornography stuff, and I was like, oh, well, it all kind of makes sense now.
Well, I haven't personally seen that video. I'd love to see it. I can't really. I have, if I had the link or something, I'd love to check that out myself. I don't know much about that, but even in the video with the alien in it, the way he jumps back, the way he talks about screaming like a girl. I mean, it all seems so hokey. Now, that being said, I'm not saying that he's hoaxing the whole thing. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that there's been intervention in someone's life by outside sources to make them seem crazy or discredited. I mean, the whole Bob Lazar thing has got holes in it too, but there's a lot of interesting facts that lead to the idea that maybe there's more there than we thought. Nick Redfern pulled up a lot of stuff about Bob Lazar working in Los Alamos and going to school in certain areas where his records couldn't be found. He was in the phone directory of being there at the time, even though his records indicated he wasn't. So there's a lot of fishy stuff that goes on. I mean, Stan Romanek, I don't know if we can even put in the same shoebox.
I don't think you can. Now with
I don't know if it was all wrong.
Well, Romanek didn't work for the government and get scrubbed.
Say it again, Alan?
I was going to say, Romanek didn't ever claim to work for the government where he was scrubbed out of the system.
No, that's true.
No,
that's true. But I'm saying that maybe somebody was perpetrating a hoax on him, or in some of the story, or maybe he is an informant himself. I mean, look at Julian Assange. What did they try to put up against Julian Assange? Rape charges or something that, from the people around him, obviously it was completely out of character about who Julian Assange was, and yet it was obviously being put into motion by the powers that be to shut him up and to give him, to discredit the guy. So, I mean, maybe these child porn charges, maybe there's some of that going on. Maybe it actually is.
I do love his answer, though.
I don't know for real, right?
What I do love about the story, though, Justin, is his answer to the police when they're asking him, about the porn. And he's like, oh, you're here for the child pornography, right? And then he goes, like, the whole story is that he went up to Lisa, his wife, and he's like, yeah, they're here for the child porn, like, so nonchalant, like really, like, you say that easily and that freely, like, and here's the thing, and that's
because he's trying to sell that angle, right? That even his wife said the same thing.
Yeah, no, that's coming directly from his wife, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and here's the thing, and I know law enforcement well enough, believe it or not. I even have family that are in the Secret Service, so I know how the law works pretty well. Here's the thing. they're not going to spend that much time tailing, tracking down the activity online, searching, on different websites to see what he's posting. They're not going to spend man time and man hours and a lot of money and resources if there's nothing there. And they're not going to do it for a stretch of 2-3 years, which is what this investigation took, okay? Mm-hmm. If they wanted to bust Stan Romanek on child pornography, if they just wanted to plant some evidence, this would have taken 2 weeks. And he would have been off the streets like that, and he would have been in jail.
So
you know
basically, when there's smoke, there's fire.
Correct. Where there is smoke, usually there is a lot of fire. And it just, I've seen so many different things now from Stan, and it really pains me because here's another guy who came up, made a name for himself, and people followed what he was doing, and, he became an entity in ufology that people were interested in. And then, this stuff happens. And it's just another black eye for, for ufology in general.
Yeah.
It's just bad for the field. It really is. And again, I would maybe have some belief in him if I hadn't seen that video of him hoaxing. And by the way, I just linked it to you on Skype. I also posted it on our Facebook. The stories we talked about earlier and everything we've talked about here tonight, by the way, everybody listening, it's on our Skype account. Once again, I'm going to give that link. It's facebook.com/Skywatchers Radio. All the links are there. All the stories we've talked about are there, including the Stan Romanek famous alien abductee faking video that has gone viral. I mean, this thing is... I'm surprised you haven't seen this video, Justin. I mean, it went viral quick.
The interview video. No, I haven't seen that one. I'd love to see that.
And this was before the porn charges came up.
Yeah,
so
no.
This was right before.
I mean, look, Stan Romanek, he's a guy, the story's fishy, it's full of holes, obviously, right? But like I said before about the Billy Meyer thing, there may be a grain of truth buried in there, right? This stuff happens all the time. People, they have a genuine sighting or event. The thing is with him, even Alejandro Rojas at one point of Open Minds was really behind Stan Romanek because a lot of
everybody was.
There were a lot of multiple witnesses to the things that he was claiming were happening. So I don't know if you can discredit all of that, but who knows for sure the real extent of how much of that stuff is real. But
I wouldn't be surprised, and here's, just hear me out, I wouldn't be surprised if they find that he's part of some child porn ring, and that a lot of those so-called witnesses might be a part of that ring.
I see.
And this is why they were all supportive, because they're all kind of in cahoots doing some other nasty stuff, and they were all part of the same kind of crowd. You know what I mean?
Well, I hope you're
that
wrong.
Would not shock me.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong, by the way.
Not because I want Stan's stories to be true. I just think that's a sick and twisted thing in this world, right? And the less of that we can have, the better. But
you know what? It would not shock me. This is why.
It's
happened in a lot of different fields. Not only would it be in ufology. Corey Feldman has come out recently saying that he was molested when he was making movies in the 80s. Yeah. Corey Haim was molested, and his child molestation led to his eventual death because he became a drug addict, an alcoholic, and this is something that they dealt with as kids because in the entertainment business, pedophilia is really big.
Apparently,
there's a lot of pedophiles.
I wonder if Michael Jackson had anything to do with Corey and Corey.
Actually, you know what? It's funny that you bring that up. Corey Feldman has completely backed Michael Jackson, saying that he never touched him.
Yeah.
He never was inappropriate in any way. But he did say that the people that were around him, he wouldn't name names. He said there were some people around Corey Feldman, and they were also around Michael Jackson. There were big producer-directors that molested him, Corey Feldman, and there is other people that have come forward and said that Michael Jackson wasn't a pedophile himself that molested children. Michael Jackson took in a lot of abuse as a kid and was molested himself, and because of the molestation that he went through, kind of flipped out and became the freak that everybody thought he was. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
kind of does,
that,
right?
Yeah.
And Corey Feldman, look, he's not. He doesn't care at this point. He's not mixing words. He's even writing a tell-all book, and he's backing another person who just came forward and is accusing of pedophilia. And this has become a really widespread issue in the entertainment business because it does happen.
I can't wait till the Lifetime TV show for the Lifetime movie of the week.
It'll follow the Goonies too, I'm sure, because they're doing that, by the way.
Oh,
but
yeah.
They are really doing that.
That kills me. That's such a classic movie. I love that movie, man. Why would they do that? God, Hollywood, come on.
Actually, you know what movie they really need to redo? 2 movies. 2 Disney movies.
Do they really need to redo any movies anymore at this point?
Okay, let me rephrase it.
Remakes.
Okay, how about a reboot?
Come up with a fresh idea.
I'd like to see a reboot.
New ideas? Who would need that?
Yeah. I want to see a reboot of Flight of the Navigator.
That was awesome.
That I would see.
One of my favorites.
Yes.
And Last Starfighter.
Oh man, that's so
hell
great.
yes.
I just watched both of them in the last year, I think.
Okay, no, hold on. I think we owe
all right
and an applause for those two choices. They're excellent. I gotta say, Flight of the Navigator, I'm on board.
I know. I'm telling you. Can you imagine? I could the same way they. You know what I would really love to see? The same way they took Stargate and made it into a TV series. I would love to see The Last Starfighter turned into a series.
Really? Oh, I don't think so. I couldn't handle that.
Well, you
I don't
figure
think so.
Well, you figure with them continuing the Star League,
it'd be easy to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have to go to different planets to recruit new people because they were destroyed in the movie. And
Last Starfighter would be a great TV series. I gotta agree with you.
Think about it.
Like
every single episode, they're landing on a different planet, trying to recruit and seeing the life of all these different aliens and how they live their life and why they're so different.
My problem is that
watch that
every time they try to create a reboot, is they just bastardize the original and just ruins it.
It's an alternate timeline. I don't know.
It could be cool.
Okay, J.J.
There's some
Abrams.
potential there.
Yeah, we're gonna put a whole bunch of lens flare in it, and we're gonna shake the camera a lot, and it'll be a great movie.
Yeah, low budget too. That's great.
You know who was very theatrical recently on TV, and I wanted to actually get your input on this, Justin, because I'm pretty sure you saw this. President Bill Clinton on the Jimmy Kimmel Show. Did you see this interview with Jimmy Kimmel? Did you see the question and his reactions to?
Yeah, talk about reboots.
The question.
It's exactly what Ronald Reagan said over and over and over again. How the whole world would be united if, we were faced with an extraterrestrial threat, how we would forget all our problems and come together and in a united front against, the tyranny.
Yada, 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 yeah.
Speaking of Reagan, can I just add another
thing? That's fishy, though. Yeah, go ahead.
I was watching a show, I don't remember which one it was, the other night on my whatever I've TiVo'd for the week. Or not TiVo'd, but downloaded. I don't want to admit to downloading BitTorrents. But
you just did.
In the Reagan presidential diaries, it talks about him having meetings with U.S. Space Command and NASA and learning that in the 80s, we don't just have the shuttles out there, but he was made aware that we have ships capable of holding 300-plus crew for multiple months in space.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's too far off. I mean, I believe all kinds of crazy stuff. And
no, it's in the actual presidential diaries.
It is?
Yeah, that's the whole thing that they pointed out, that this was in the presidential diaries that were recently published, that he made this comment. I've now become aware of this, and this was right before he made the statement that you're just quoting. I think the program was called Solar Warden.
Oh, right. Yeah. I don't know the full extent of the documentation, but I mean, I'm fully aware of the Star Wars program with Ronald Reagan. And I mean, even Gary McKinnon, who was implicated. I mean, for a decade, the U.S. was trying to extradite him for charges of breaking into the NASA database and taking files off of there because they, didn't have the brain power to put a password together to protect their site.
Well, password is password.
Yeah, and even he was saying, he had uncovered evidence of something huge in space, whether it was a mothership, but he also found documents that alluded to the idea that there was a space command, that there was an off-world fleet of soldiers and military out there, or a separate secret elite group of the government. And why wouldn't there be? I mean, we're using the same technology almost entirely across the board that we've been using for 60, 70 years, right? In cars, 100. Like, do they honestly think that we believe that nothing changes when all our technology, like Moore's Law says that every 18 months processing power doubles? Are you telling me we're still using the combustion engine like 100 years after it was invented, or the rocket the way they present it to the public? NASA, for me, is a public space program, and if they don't have a space fleet in space, I would be super embarrassed to be anywhere near the powers that be or affiliated with them at this point in history.
NASA is without a doubt a front. I mean, they're definitely a front just to put a face on some kind of space program.
They better have a friggin' space program, or it's an embarrassment for humanity.
No, I'm
even if it is secret.
Look, I'm fully convinced that there is a secret space program that we're not aware of. That a lot of black budget projects and money goes to these programs. I'm convinced of that. I'm super convinced that NASA's just a front to give the world kind of a shining example of what a legit space program looks like and how nice it is to work as scientists in space. That's really all they are. But there's really a black budget project that's been going on in this country for years. That Several of them, but one main that controls the space program that we don't know about, and they drain so much money from this country and from the world, really, because this is beyond just this country. Once I do believe, look, if there is contact between humans and aliens already that's been made, and there's some secret projects that are going on, and we've done all this back engineering, like the whole story goes, right? If all that stuff is true, or if most of that stuff is true, then guess what? There's going to be a very good chance that it's not just the United States government has this information, but they're probably have already been sharing with other countries, and this could explain the end of the Cold War, for example. Different things have gone on through the last 5 decades where we've had to go in and get rid of certain dictators to kind of unify parts of the world, because we gotta, really, we're all living with a secret that we only are telling certain parts of the population or certain groups that are within the need-to-know bases, you know what I mean? And I don't think presidents are in the need-to-know bases. Why would they be?
No, exactly.
NASA neither.
They're
not
either
in
only
need-to-know
serving
basis.
4 years or 8 years.
Yeah, well, it's compartmental. Yeah, exactly. And everything's compartmentalized, right? Everything's need to know. So, I mean, the secrets, people always say, oh, how can they keep a secret like this for so long? It's very easy to keep a secret. You compartmentalize everything, and then you send all your tech out to private industry to either back engineer or create, and that way, because of copyright infringement and patent laws and all of that stuff, they don't have to tell you anything about what they've got.
Right.
Like, I'm a firm believer in the fact that, I mean, it may have always been this way. There may be secret sects, or even, Mac Tony's come up with the cool idea of crypto-terrestrials. Like, there may be, alongside us, another group of entities that may look just like us, that may be us, but completely separate branch of humanity. Richard Dolan calls them the breakaway civilization. They may have always been alongside us throughout the eons, or they may be a new thing that's developed. But, it's a
Does
very
that mean, like, who is John Galt?
Who? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Does that mean, like, when you say breakaway civilization, that's recent, that, to me, is like, who is John Galt?
I'm not familiar with...
I'm not even sure what you're talking about, John Galt.
Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. I don't know if you know
You're
the author.
You're speaking Chinese to both of us right now, my friend.
Is that the racist politician?
No. Ayn Rand...
Okay. Oh.
Ayn Rand wrote a book called Atlas Shrugged.
Okay.
It's about where all the brightest and smartest people of the States and other parts of the country literally broke away because they were being stifled by government clamping down on patents or stealing the technology that they were creating or just suppressing everything. And they literally broke away to, and create their own little hamlet, their own little civilization where their ideas and technology and everything can flourish.
Yeah, well, I mean, call me a conspiracy theorist or whatever you want to call me. I don't really care. I mean, it's just a very simple formula. You have a really well-oiled, greased machine that produces an enormous amount of not only money and wealth, but a lot of belief. There's a lot of psychology and sociology involved with the machine as well. And if you can continue to perpetuate that in the Edward Bernazian fashion to keep people hypnotized and illusioned to, what the left hand is doing, then the right hand can go off and do whatever it needs to do. If you look, I mean, either Ben Rich, the former CEO of Skunk Works, Lockheed Martin, was a plant or insane, or else he was for real when he did his lecture tour in retirement with all the universities and said that we have the technology to take ET back home into the stars, but it would take an act of God to put that power back in the hands of the public sector. I mean, I'm totally down with the whole idea that this is a well-funded, oiled machine. No one's accountable for the money. There are no countries, flags, or borders anymore. It's all a big illusion. It's a dog and pony show that we're all involved with. Very Orwellian the way I say this, and it sounds really depressing, but I think that's the way it really goes down. They present the media the way they want us to see it, and then do whatever the hell they want on the side because they have the money, the power, the means to do it. However long it's been here is another question. What exactly they're doing is another one, because there is no finite answers to the infiniteness of where you can go with all this stuff in this day and age.
No, there really isn't, and there really isn't any answers. Scientifically, there's no answers. There's no proof of a lot of the stuff. And just like religion, and we're not going to get into religious conversations. Don't worry. But just like religion, a lot of ufology stuff is based on faith.
That's true, except I hate it when people ask me, do you believe in UFOs? And it's like, well, what are you talking about, belief in UFOs? UFO means unidentified flying object. Are you asking me if I believe in space beings? Like, no, I don't believe in a Barry Gibb god sitting on a throne or something, right? With his big
white
a
god
beard.
with a white beard? You don't believe in that?
Like this whole belief that, like, if you line up all the facts and follow the money, all signs point to this is what's going on. You just can't nail it down because everything's compartmentalized and everything's hidden so well and no one's leaking and, people cover their tracks left and right. Like, that's the whole problem with this field, too. And if you find anyone in this world that says this is exactly what's going on, you got to go the other direction because no one knows exactly what's going on. Right? But we can only kind of sniff out where we think it may be or where it may lie.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I've come to on it anyway.
I completely agree. Anybody who tells you right off the bat that they have all the answers are usually the biggest liars.
Well, science is one of the biggest dogmas about that. Right?
Science is one of the biggest liars.
And they're always like, "Well, no, that's impossible. It's this is the way it is because this is the way it is." And then it's like, 20 years later, someone proves it wrong, but it takes another 100 years for anyone to change the history books because we have to wait for those people to die, right? Max Planck said it best, the normal Nobel Peace Prize winner back, early in this, I think in early 1917 or 1920, when he said that great ideas don't happen overnight, which it sucks. You have to wait for that entire generation to die before the newer generations adopt those ideas and run with it. And it sucks because our human lifespan is so short that I'm very impatient about this kind of stuff because I don't have an entire lifetime to live and die to see it. And maybe in the other side, I'll figure that out if there is another side, right? But I kind of want to find out now, and that's the hard part to deal with, is knowing that this stuff is, people always look for disclosure with a capital D, but disclosure is happening with a little d all around us all the time if we pay attention to science, right? The news and the media is constantly created. It's not researched and found out for the most part, right? Mass media,
And, you went on a nice little rant there, and I thought you were going to go into social media, but you got cut off. I guess the powers that be, maybe the New World Order, the Illuminati, maybe the people that killed Tupac or Biggie. I don't know. Somebody stopped the connection, my friend, and you just died worse than Vanilla Ice's career for the entirety of civilization.
I just saw him last weekend, actually.
Wow. Well, he's still working. He's working at South Beach at a bar. Anyway, he's a nice guy.
No, he was performing at Bike Week. Actually.
Oh, was he really?
Leesburg, yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, I kid, but actually Vanilla Ice is paid, man. He actually does a lot of shows and stuff, so.
Yeah, he's cool, man. He's like, he's, when he does his interviews and stuff, he's down with the level. He knows he was a cheeseball back in the day, and he runs with that.
It's funny that we bring up, that I bring up Vanilla Ice, because I actually saw a documentary on him not long ago, and he really does admit that he was cheesy.
Yeah, he knows.
But he got paid. But he got paid.
Of course.
Cheesy.
And he still does. He sells out concerts, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And now he's working doing commercials for macaroni and cheese. Perfect casting for Vanilla Ice. Yeah,
that's
perfect
awesome.
casting for him. But you were on a good rant.
Yeah, man.
Let's revisit that because, I want to give you a chance to continue because you did get cut off. So
here's the crazy part.
Pick up where you were.
Literally, I swear to God, it feels like I went into a time slip there because it seemed flawless for me. Like
you kept talking. Yeah.
That's the weird part. I didn't hear anyone say nothing's going on. I didn't see anybody calling me back. Anyway, what I was saying was I think I was talking about the role of the media in today's world.
Correct.
Where almost anything in our lives can be fabricated. The media, for instance, most of these big media outlets, last time I heard, 90% was owned by Rupert Murdoch, one person, and one media conglomerate. When all of those guys, and these are major media papers, I'm talking about the entire globe, and they all get their stories essentially from the AP, the Associated Press, and then they run with that, and there's not a lot of real research or journalism that goes on anymore. The media is created. It's very Orwellian in a way, but
right.
I mean, we have to be aware of the fact that you have to be very careful about where you put your faith and what you believe in, and what news you're going to run with. We live in an infinite world, and it's not finite anymore. I totally believe that there are agendas in play here that have nothing to do with us, and I don't know if I'm repeating myself here or not, but I think that there's a really well-oiled machine that works very well at generating a lot of money and public opinion, very Edward Bernaysian, about the power of persuasion with the media, hypnotism, and advertising, and how we feel about ourselves in the world. The left hand is doing this while the right hand is doing that, and ufology is a part of that whole thing, right? Everything is a part of this, and in a way that you can't really throw the baby out with the bathwater in a lot of sense. Before I got cut off, was I mentioning Chris O'Brien?
I think you were leading into Chris O'Brien, but you hadn't gotten there yet.
Okay, so I want to talk about that real quickly, because here's a guy along with like Jacques Vallée and Micah Hanks who are very fresh, and they're still young. I mean, Chris I think is in his 50s, Mike is in his 30s, Vallée is older still, but they have these amazing ideas that I think we really have to. And Mac, even for instance, before he went on to the kind of new agey kind of momentum of things with the abduction phenomenon. This idea that the UFO phenomenon is so big and so vast and so strange. There's so many weird trickster elements to it. There's a lot of... It's not just a nuts and bolts Stanton T. Friedman spaceship with aliens from Alpha Centauri coming here. We're talking about like orbs, interdimensional sort of situations, crypto creatures, skinwalkers, werewolf creatures,
USOs, Hollow Earth,
USOs,
and my favorite one, Bat Squatch.
Bat Squatch, yeah,
that's awesome.
That's it.
That's my favorite one, Bat Squatch.
But these guys are saying, this is a really great analogy or metaphor for the way life is right now. Is that there are so many strange and weird elements to the UFO field that I don't think we're dealing with one answer. We're dealing with a plethora of answers. And it's not just aliens. It could be interdimensionals, cryptoterrestrials. And a big part of this, I heard Chris Stiles just wrote his book, Stalking the Herd, with a gentleman. His name slips me right now. I feel so bad for it because he's a really amazing researcher. And he was on the Paracast there recently, not to mention another show. But anyway, he was saying that he's got this whole theory about the UFO phenomenon where he thinks that it's possible that the Earth itself is a sentience. Now, hear me out. Like Gaia isn't just a theory or, something we get from native mythology, but it's playing with our consciousness on a continual level to help us move and evolve and think about new things. And that's why the phenomenon always eludes us only by a few decades. Before it was angels and demons, gnomes, goblins, fairies. It was people in airships and bow ties coming down a rope ladder to ask for directions to go back up and fix it. And then it became flying saucers. And now it's orbs, right? It's not physical anymore. It's orbs. And it's almost like his theory is that the Earth itself is always psychologically preparing us, a product of the Earth, to evolve and move faster and further until, like a seed or a flower, we leave the Earth and seed the rest of the universe in a perpetual cycle of life. And if that's not one of the coolest theories you've ever heard, I don't know what is. But this is what we're dealing with. I love it. There's so many different angles. I'm not saying that's the be-all, end-all, but I'm saying is we have to keep our mind open because there's a lot of strange elements to the UFO field that don't make any sense, and it's not just about nuts and bolts aliens. I think that's a great metaphor and analogy for life itself.
It is, but here's where it still could be nuts and bolts aliens, and it could be all that.
It could be all of it, right?
No, but check this out. Let's go back 2,000 years, right? An alien craft coming out from the skies. 2,000 years ago, where there's no reference to alien ships, flying vehicles of any kind.
Exactly.
They don't even know that the Earth is round at this point, right? What is that going to look like to them? A chariot in the sky. Exactly. They don't know any other reference, so they're going to call it what they think it is.
Big time.
If an alien is abducting a person, 500 years ago, where they don't even know about planes, or they don't know, they don't have a concept of aliens. They know religion, and they know the spookiness of voodoo and all kinds of different stuff that has been out there for maybe a couple hundred years or 1,000 years or 5,000 years. The little religious stuff that people might know. And an alien is trying to abduct them, like they do. They go into the room when they're sleeping at night, and they have the sleep paralysis. They wake up and they see little beings. What is this person going to think? I'm being attacked by demons. Holy crap! Demons are in my house and they're trying to kill me because they don't know any better. You know what I mean? They're not going to have that reference that is an alien from another world. So it could still be, extraterrestrial nuts and bolts crafts that came down and did something, but it's the reference of the person who's having the interaction with the being, that they just are in a time period where they don't know any better.
That's it's the cultural
it's
identity
ignorance of the person.
Moment.
Exactly. Now we're at a certain point where we know about flying crafts because the Wright brothers gave us airplanes, right? Or there's evidence that there are other people working on airplanes besides them, but we always credit the Wright brothers. So we know about airplanes. We know the government has stuff in the skies. We see stuff flying around. There's certain things that we know of already now, and with that, and with the popular topic of ufology and aliens that has been popularized because of the media, because of the movies in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. This is a very popular subject now. Now our point of reference is no longer, demons or anything. Now we're looking at it like, if it comes from the sky and it's not from this earth, geez, that's an alien. Now we get that reference because now we could put that together, because entertainment, and this is there's a good piece of evidence that the worst creation ever made was the TV, and there's also some evidence that it might have been the best thing ever created because it gave us TV, it gives us movies at home that we could just sit there and watch, and entertainment and stuff. The cinema is great, but it also helps to culturally change the dynamic of the way people think, and they've been injecting the subject of aliens and UFOs for the last 60, 70 years. It's become a very popular topic in the film industry, and that is conditioning the world to think differently of whether, what their sightings might be. So again, who's not to say that, 500 years ago they thought they were demons, but now we know better, and, we kind of understand things a little bit differently. And then again, who's not to say that maybe they really are demons, and the aliens are demons, and we're all being fooled, and it's all one big masquerade, and we're all just a bunch of silly bastards being fooled by the devil.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I know. Who knows? I mean, I totally agree. I mean, this could be one factor of many. It could be the extraterrestrial presence, could be maybe an underlying theme of what's going on. But we're still having weird things happen every day. Strange cases being reported that are completely out of the ordinary. Like, what is this whole orb phenomenon? This is constantly happening. I mean, is this something that's just slightly outside of the cultural identity of the time? I mean, that's why I talk about that Gaia kind of hypothesis there of sentience. There's all, even the skinwalker stories are still happening, with Bigelow buying the ranch down there, people seeing werewolves, strange things that shouldn't exist, Sasquatches around UFOs.
How much is that a product of reality, and how much of that is a product of moonshine or drugs?
Or a product of, I know, but the stories still exist, right? They're still popping up. They also go way back down.
Where is the Skinwalker Ranch? Where is it again?
I have no idea where. It's the Midwest somewhere, isn't that? I don't know exactly where.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the Midwest.
Is it in one of the states where pot is legal? Maybe they're growing there, and since they're doing the campfires, instead of using the regular wood logs, they're throwing in the hemp. They're getting high from that, and then they're seeing
high from the hemp.
I'm not calling bat squatch on that theory, Alan. I'm not going to call it. That's a good theory.
I'm trying.
That's a good. I'm giving you props. That's a good theory. That's a good one.
Skinwalker Ranch is very strange, though. I mean, Bigelow has taken an enormous interest in the area. There's a lot of paranormal activity that's been going on there. That has been going on.
Yeah, but how much is it legitimately documented? Exactly.
I'd love to see it.
Look, forget a video. Forget a video, because you can hoax videos. There has to be if there is some kind of a Sasquatch, kill the bastard, bring the body to the media, and let's dissect it scientifically, and let's find out if these things are real. There's been no real evidence. Somebody says, "Oh yeah, I got some hair," then it's proven to be a wolf or something, a wolf hair. A guy said, "Oh yeah, I got a body in a fridge." It turns out to be a suit with some meat in it or whatever they put in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I'm not saying Sasquatch exists at all. I'm just saying the reports are still coming in.
Well, yeah, no, you're always going to get reports, and this is where I went, what I was talking about earlier, the psychosis in ufology and in fields like it, where people see a way to make a name for themselves or a way to get some attention, and they use it to do that. And like those two guys who got busted hoaxing the Sasquatch in the fridge.
Yeah.
These guys are just out for attention. That's all that was. And that, if there is a Sasquatch out there somewhere, how do you believe it when everything that's come out has been fake, fraud, footage? I mean, nothing is legit. That's the bad part. If you want to convince me there's a Bigfoot out there, get a shotgun, shoot the bastard in the head, and bring me the body. I'll believe you then.
I'd love to see it. I mean, I've seen some pretty weird pictures from over the years. A lot of them blurry and not very good. But I've seen one from the turn of the century that was pretty interesting. It looked like a big, 9-foot tall, skinny monkey. I don't know what the story is on that one, but anyway, I don't know about Sasquatch. But I mean, here's the question I pose to you: with all this technology we have, why aren't we having any fantastic UFO footage? And some people would say, well, we do have it. And it's like, well, most of it's CGI, I'm sure. Yeah. But the question is here's the thing, is if we have all this technology and all these people and the reports are still coming in and constantly coming in, it just seems that there seems to be a component to this phenomenon that eludes us constantly, almost like on purpose, because they don't, or it won't let us find it. But it's always there, and that's why I think that there's something much bigger going on than possibly just extraterrestrials. It might be extraterrestrials, but I think there's a bigger angle to this, and throwing the extraterrestrial thing down there is just a little too easy for what's actually going on.
No, I kind of agree. In fact, looking back at that Bill Clinton interview on Jimmy Kimmel, his body language, and I sent you a link, I don't know if you saw it there on Skype, Justin, and I put it on our Facebook account also for anybody listening who wants to see it. His body language is so telling of what he might really know compared to what he's saying that he saw or he knew when he was asked about it. Especially the one part where he's asked, if, you found aliens, would you have said something? And he's like, oh, definitely.
Immediately.
But he says when he says it, he breaks contact and he looks down. That's a telling tale that you're lying.
Yeah.
A lot of times, or that you're stressed and you're answering,
or
something that you don't want to answer. And there's so many little telling tales of his body language that really they dissected it on this video, and it's brilliant. By the way, this is on Open Minds, the website, cool. openminds.tv.
One of the best.
And I put it on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Skywatchers Radio. You can see it right there as a picture of Bill Clinton. They dissected the interview, and they go point by point where he either seems stressed, or he seems like he's flat out lying, or he's just misleading. And then when he's jolly and happy again, how that comes off as he's finally being honest about something because he's not talking about the subject in that way or something that might give him away. Because you can understand, because if Bill Clinton really was interested in the subject and he went to people and said, I want to know the truth, and he made a point to find out the truth. And let's say he stumbled upon some information that was truthful, and they told him, hey, you can never speak about this, you can't say a word about this or you're going to die, basically. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, okay, I guess I'll keep it to myself and I won't say nothing, but can I tell Hillary? And they said, no, you cannot tell Hillary. Oh, come on, Monica? Can't tell Monica either, Bill. Who can I tell? Can I tell Chelsea? She's a little girl. No, Bubba, you can't tell anybody. And then he just stayed quiet for all these years, and he hasn't said anything. But, if he's in an interview like with Jimmy Kimmel, you can kind of like tell that he wants to tell, because deep in him, I think he really is a fan, and if he knows, he is dying to tell something, and you can tell in that video that he's dying to say, you know what, I did find something, and there really are aliens out there, and he's just itching to say something, but he just couldn't. And at one point, Jimmy asks him again if he would tell the world, if there were aliens, if he found something, and he's like, yeah, and when he says it, he looks down and he actually says no, but he's saying yes with his head.
I know.
He's doing like a counter answer.
Yeah, I immediately thought, no way would he ever tell us. No one, even if he had the power to tell us, he would never tell us. I mean, that's just.
Why would he?
I know exactly what. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. That's my very first feeling about that interview was, wow, he answered that quickly. Was he prepped for that one or what? We know that from Grant Cameron, our Canadian researcher here, from out. I think he's from Manitoba. He has the site Presidential UFO. We know that the Clintons have always been interested in UFOs for whatever capacity. Hillary Clinton was seen reading a book about UFOs a few years back, and a photograph that was taken that Grant analyzed. And he knows that she was speaking to someone in the field as well, inquiring about what was going on. So intrinsically, maybe Bill felt the same way and wanted to know, but I don't know what capacity these people know. I mean, as far as I understand, the politicians are just the puppets for a grander scheme, right? The TV personalities that we're going to ooh and ah and Google over. And, and where they are parts of secret societies as part of their initiation, which is thousands of years old. I don't know how much information they would really know, but I think it's very little.
I think it's very little also, but I think, if you press the right buttons and you are in that position of president, you could use your president power to get certain information. And I'm pretty sure Bill might have found out some information, and it doesn't scare me that he might know something that maybe he's just dying to tell us. And I think that there is again in that video there's enough evidence to prove or to point to that disclosure is maybe not that far away, because he looks like he's really like itching to just say something, and he knows there's something coming. Yeah. And and I believe that we do have disclosure not that far off.
There's not much time left, and there's so much to talk about, because I'd love to go into talking about the Vatican and the painting Cosmico Imbraccio that was in behind there when the Queen and Barack and everybody met, and talking about the coming age, the third secret of Fatima. And there's just so much to talk about on the show in so little time.
And speaking of the Vatican, don't they have a telescope named Lucifer?
Yeah, it's an acronym. Yeah, it's like a long-range binocular sort of observation unit.
Now, I don't know, at some point, why didn't somebody in the Vatican say, maybe naming this thing Lucifer is not a good idea?
Because I think they're trying to send signals. I think a lot of these groups want to send messages out to people who can understand the symbols and information that they're throwing at us without being blatant about it. To say there's more going on here than meets the eye. Well, I mean, I don't know. What are they looking for? Demons? I mean, what if everyone's looking for disclosure too, but maybe the reason they're not telling us and have never told us and may never tell us because it's so terrifying and horrible, and there's nothing we can do about it. Has anyone ever thought about that one? Sure, a lot of people have thought about that, but they don't want to think about it. And it's been insinuated in a number of different ways, from the Gnostic Gospels to Carla Castaneda.
Even something that Stephen Hawking said not long ago kind of resonates with that, where he said that, look, we might not want to know what's out there, and we might not be wanting to send all these signals out there trying to contact aliens, because when white man had landed on America, it didn't happen to prosper too well for the Native Americans. They didn't do too well.
Exactly.
So imagine on a global scale how that would be.
I always hope that the universe would be better than stupid white people, but anyway, I said it.
Well, here's the thing, though. If you look at the Bible, there's giant white people in the Bible. So.
That's true.
Giant morons, huh?
Just
flying in space.
I guess depending on the way you look at it, the Sumerian mythology and texts and cuneiform tablets kind of
the Nordics,
could say the same thing, right, about the giant Anunnaki gods. I mean, but Mesopotamians were generally not white. But anyway.
That's true. Yeah, that's a different show altogether.
Yeah.
Like White Jesus. Yeah, right.
Barry Gibb. I love that.
That's a lie.
Yeah.
That's okay. You heard about the new Gospel of Barnabas that just showed up.
Oh, isn't that amazing?
It might be authentic.
I mean, I'm not saying it's a surprise, right?
But he was okay. So Jesus was never crucified. No. That's another one.
Okay, that's
another one just showed up. They're calling it possibly the Gospel of Barnabas, where Jesus wasn't actually crucified. He did not rise up.
What? He may have been a man?
Yeah.
A dissident?
Are you serious?
What? Yeah. I just saw this the other day, and I'm like,
I've never seen a dissident be executed for his political beliefs before.
No, never happened.
That's amazing. What a revelation.
Have you ever seen the documentary Ring of Power or Empire of the City?
No.
No, that sounds amazing, though.
I highly recommend it. Anybody who's listening right now, well, not right now, but after the show, go to YouTube and put Ring of Power or Empire of the City. It's the same movie. They have two different titles. I don't know why, but I think it was one long title at one point, and then two people split it up on YouTube. And anyway, it's about a 5-hour documentary, but it's worth every minute. It details a lot of the knowledge that supposedly the Illuminati, the New World Order, Freemasonry, and a lot of the knowledge that is hidden from like the everyday folks was put together in this one very cool documentary where you can actually go on, different places historically and, different history books and do your own research and find out that a lot of the information is actually true. Mm-hmm. The stuff that you can find, and there's a lot of stuff that deals with the government and the way the system is set up and how it's set up a certain way. It goes back to the Queen of England.
Jesus, the idea of Jesus mythology and religion dating back to old ancient belief systems in the sun and the moon and all that kind of stuff.
No, that's zeitgeist.
Yeah,
but this is beyond zeitgeist. This is actually is more, when you look at this and you start doing your own homework, when I want to reference the Jesus part now, and we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to try to make it as quick as possible, but the documentary goes into Jesus, and it lays in pretty thick into who Jesus was, not biblically, but historically. Mm-hmm. And it makes perfect sense when you look at the people around Jesus, like the disciples, their names, Mary Magdalene, who, a lot of people are saying could have been his wife and his half-sister.
Yeah.
Okay, now this is all part of like the history that the Bible doesn't want us to know. Right. There's reasons why. In this documentary, they connect the dots, and it's so brilliantly done that you will just come away saying this has to be true. And who Jesus was, and I'm going to say it right now, I'm going to break it down to you real quick.
Spoilers.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Jesus, and the way the story breaks it down, Jesus was the son of Julius Caesar and Cleopatra. Now, Julius Caesar, if you know your history, was killed in battle in Rome when there was the old Roman Empire, right? The old Roman Empire that was replaced by New Rome, the new Roman Empire that's controlling the Vatican, controlling everything, right? We all know that. Legit. Now, the old Roman Empire went down when Julius Caesar, JC, just like Jesus Christ initials, when he died, he had a son with Cleopatra, who was the goddess of Egypt, right? This will make their offspring what? The son of two gods, the god of Rome and the god of Egypt, the goddess of Egypt. And Julius Caesar was actually elevated to the status of god when he died, because that's what happened in Rome. You would get, if you were a king and you were killed in battle, they automatically elevated you to the status of a god. So their offspring being the god of the gods, the son of the sun, right? Which was the reference to Caesar Caesarion, or Little Caesar, not the pizza guy, but that character is actually based off of Caesar Caesarion, who leaves at the age of 10, disappears because Cleopatra sends him away because she's afraid for his life, because Octavian, the stepson of Julius Caesar, wants to take over Rome, and he knows the only heir to the throne is Little Caesar, right? So he goes on his quest to kill Little Caesar. This is when Cleopatra sends him away with a peasant couple, ironically named Joseph and Mary. How ironic that is. This is historical also. So she sends him away to go and grow up outside of Egypt and outside of Rome, somewhere far away where Octavian can't find his boy. In the history books, there is reports that maybe Octavian found him and had him killed. Nobody really knows the authentic story, but there was a man who traveled the Mediterranean and traveled and studied with the Buddha, the Dalai Lama, or studied about the Buddha with the Dalai Lama and Buddhism and all that stuff. That's also historical. They named him Joshua, or Joshua.
Yeah, or Yeshua, yeah.
Right. This person follows the same chronological timeline as Little Caesar. If you look at the timeline, it's identical. They're off maybe by 10 years, and that is due because it's due because of the time gap between year 0 and year 1.
Yeah.
Nobody really knows what the time gap, if it would happen automatically or when did it really start. There's no record keeping. So who knows exactly. But they're off maybe by 10 years, if that, on the timeline. So it's very, very close. It could be this very same person. Now, the story goes that the person comes back, Little Caesar comes back to Rome to reclaim his father's throne at the age of 30. Sounds familiar, right?
Interesting.
And when he comes back to reclaim his father's throne on Rome, he finds Octavian taking over, and he can't do much about it because he doesn't have an army, and Octavian has the Roman army. So he creates his own religion and mythology, and he used the religion to create the new Roman Empire, which eventually crushed the old Roman Empire, and that's how the new Roman Empire came to be, which also correlates to the time period where there is no mention of Jesus historically in any record kept from, even the crucifixion, none of that stuff was ever kept. The first stories of Jesus were actually told, I think it was like 300 or 400 years after the supposed crucifixion. Let's just leave it at that. The supposed crucifixion of Christ. It was like 300 or 400 years after that fact that the first stories came out. Why is that?
Blasphemer!
Well, maybe not. Watch a documentary.
Sounds amazing, man.
When you watch this I've seen it like 10 times, and it's a 5-hour documentary. Wow. But I highly recommend it again. Empire of the City, Ring of Power. Look it up. When you see the Jesus connections, you're going to be like, "Holy crap! We've been fed a lot of lies. This is legit." And again, when you go do your own homework, and this is what's beautiful about the internet, what I love about the internet, and it gives you the outlet to be able to say, "Okay, who is this person?" You type it up, and you're going to get all kinds of results. And I'm not saying go to Wikipedia, people, because anybody could doctor Wikipedia. But there's different places online where you can get historical information that is legit. You can use the library, go to the library and look at some of your history books about Rome, and you can see that Julius Caesar really had a half-son with Cleopatra. This stuff happened.
That's
There's
intense.
mythology.
Yeah, that's really cool.
There's mythology. The Bible is nothing but a reworks of other histories.
Over and over again. I know. I mean, some of the stories in there are ancient. Like a lot of the stories in the Bible itself come from Sumer.
Of course.
The Cuneiform tablets tell the same stories about the flood.
Trials of Gilgamesh.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Justin, we're almost out of time. We're almost at the end here. We have only a few more minutes. This has been an awesome show, man. I really loved talking with you, and I have to have you back on here again. I know you're going to start pretty soon on PSN on your own show, Unified Field Radio. I'm so hyper and excited about that, man. I'm bouncing off the walls, man. I can't wait for you to get on that show and start it up. It's going to be awesome, and this is what you guys can expect, this kind of talk on his show. Maybe not as intense as the Jesus stuff there at the end.
I'll get crazy. He
gets a little nutty on his show. Give the audience your links and stuff so they can follow what you have online now, and when the show is going to come back on, obviously it'll be on PSN Radio, but your website so everybody can go on there and start checking your stuff out. Yeah,
I'm on unifiedfieldradio.com. It's a bit of a mouthful, but if you can't spell it, you shouldn't be there. Unifiedfieldradio.com. There's all the archives from the old shows I did there. I'm also on Facebook at the same handle, and Twitter's Unified Field Rad. I haven't posted to Twitter for a while, but now that I'm going to be coming back to PSN, I should be getting back on the hot wire there.
That's awesome. And I know you're always open to have people contact you if they want to be guests and stuff on your show, because you're going to be having a lot of good guests on like you always did in the past. So if anybody's listening, any guests who want to be on the show, contact them. And
contact me at go figure, at unifiedfieldradio.com, and let me know what's going on. Send me some books if you have them for promotion. I can get a little background, and then maybe we can do a show.
That's so cool, man. I can't wait to have you start up your show again. It's going to be sometime next month or sometime this month coming up, I hope.
I know.
So we look forward to that. Thank you so much again for spending some time with us, Justin.
It was great talking with you.
We'll talk soon, my friend.
Yeah, thank you both. It's been really fun.
You're the man. Guys, we're almost out of time. We only have about a minute left, a minute and a half, if that. So I want to thank everybody again who listened to the show tonight, all few hundred of you who listened in. Again, shame on you for not calling in. Tomorrow I'm going to get like 10 calls, Alan. That's going to happen tomorrow. Justin guy was great, man. I got a question for him. And I'm going to be like, you know what? Click. I'm just going to hang up on you people because it's going to be
fun listening to you say, you know what? Click.
You know what I'm going to start doing? I'm going to start recording the calls, and then when I ever have that guest back on, I'm going to be like, let me play you a clip from a caller they called after I had you last on, like 6 months ago. They had a question. Let me just, bring it up now.
Actually, I think we should do it the weekend, the following time we're up on online. It's like, these are the idiots that chose not to call while we actually had the guest. So here, you get to listen to the first, during our first segment, we should do, calls that should have came in during the show.
Should have, could have, but didn't. You suckers. Anyway, call in sometime. It'll be nice. When we're having a guest on the air, people. But thank you for listening in. All our friends again at TalkStream Live, thank you for all the hard work you guys do over there. Keith Rowland, the owner and runner of the Dark Matter Radio Network, our chief in charge, the boss on Dark Matter, thank you for doing what you do every week. For everybody on PSN Radio listening in, thank you all for staying up this late to listen to Skywatchers Radio, and Justin Brown, again, for being just an awesome guest on this show tonight. And good night, everybody. Keep looking to the skies.
Wasn't he involved in the breaking of... Yeah, he worked for a television station when the Kecksburg event happened in the 60s, and he reported it. I mean, that's how far back he goes in the UFO field, without even directly being involved, maybe, right? He goes way back. He's a funny guy. He's very cerebral.
Yeah, he is.
Huge fan of UFO hunters and Future Theater, of course.
Talking to him, though, it's funny because we kind of are on the same page on the hatred for, like, a lot of the hoaxing that goes on in ufology. And, of course, you kind of got to deal with it. And, there's a lot of people that we interview that are either abductees or contactees or people that have brought forth videos on YouTube or whatever. And, when you see a lot of the stuff that are clear hoaxes and these people are getting fame out of it, it is a little bit upsetting because it's bad for ufology. You know what I mean? It's bad for the overall field of what we're putting together as everybody is investigating or has been investigating for the last, 40 years now. So there's certain things that, you just kind of have to deal with. But, on your show, for example, I know you've had a lot of guests on your show in the past. Has there been any guest that just kind of, like, irked you? Like, man, this person is such a hoaxer, such a faker. Because, we don't like to bash anybody, but, you can always kind of tell when you're interviewing somebody who's on the money and who's not. Well, not always, but sometimes you can. But has there been that one guest that after you've done the show and you're like, man, this guy is so full of it?
Well, first of all, guys, remember I'm from Canada. We're pretty nice up here.
This is true. So you wouldn't say, man, this guy's full of it. You would say, I don't think he's honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, we try to be fair and balanced and give everyone a fair shake when possible, and that's kind of the platform that I've always had with my show. I'd like to give, if people have something that they've been talking about that's fantastic, I'm not going to go ahead and support someone who's hoaxing something. If it's obvious, I'm not going to get involved. I don't want to have anything like that on my show. But sometimes in this type of field, it's impossible to know, who's hoaxing and who's not. You can tell a lot of the times, but you can't always tell. I spoke to, the biggest one of all, I guess, would have been probably not. Well, the Billy Meyer stories. Michael Horn was on the show, and he's a very animated guy.
My condolences. Yeah, he is.
Yeah, so he's the American representative of Billy Meyer, right? Everybody, I think, is aware of Michael Horn.
Yes.
And he's adamant that this thing happened. Even if he thinks it's a hoax, he's still spreading the gospel that it's not. There's a huge holes in Billy Meyer's story, obviously. There's a ton of it. There's... for one, is the ray gun. Like, the ray gun's there, okay? Yeah. Billy Meyer says he's got a ray gun, and then the people want to see the ray gun that the aliens gave him, and then guess what happens? The ray gun disappears.
From Unified Field Radio himself, Justin Brown, welcome to Skywatchers Radio, my friend.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, I guess, depending on when or where you're watching or listening to this show.
That is correct, my friend. And you're joining us from where? Tell the audience where you're at tonight.
I'm on the east coast of Canada, calling in from Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Oh, nice. Stan Freeman lives out there, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's the next province over. He's from he's living in New Brunswick there in Fredericton.
Oh, really? Very cool.
Very cool. Have you been out to visit Stan at all?
I'm in New Brunswick all the time. I'm always traveling over there, but I've never gone specifically to see him. I usually run into Stan down at the Shag Harbor Conference in August down here on the South Shore.
He's an awesome, awesome gentleman, Stan Freeman. I love that dude. I've had him on the show a couple times, and he's like actually one of the best people to interview. Obviously, he's an expert on Roswell, and that's one of the greatest topics in ufology. That's the one everybody talks about. But just overall, even in private, just have a conversation with Stanton Friedman is always cool.
Well, I think he's super. He's a super amazing guest because not only is he really knowledgeable about everything in ufology, but he's just a really nice, down to earth guy.
Yeah, he's well spoken, very well.
Yeah, he's very well spoken, and if he's got the time, he'll chit chat with you as long as he can.
Oh,
He's
he
cool.
definitely. It's funny because we had him on a show once. I think it was like on Unraveling the Secrets, and I was producing the show. And after the show ended, I mean, we just kept talking with him and Dennis and myself, and for like another like 30 minutes, and it was just chit chat, like off the air, just friendly banter. And again, one of the nicest people in ufology. Really, really enjoy his company and love his work. I mean, what an amazing amount of work he's done since he joined the whole UFO community, huh?
Oh man,
Seriously.
he's been at it for so long. First of all, I
Yeah.
guess anybody who's done it as long as he has and has half the brains that he has would, I would hope, should have some sort of amount of information to give to the
Yeah.
world about the subject.
No
Yeah,
kidding.
he's a super amazing guy. Knows a lot of his chops. But I mean, some people say that. He's not completely on top of his game because there are some folks that don't really believe in the documents that have come forward about MJ12.
Yep, we got into that with Alejandro Rojas recently. There's the Mirage Men film that is debunking all that stuff. But here's the thing: Stan Friedman is a researcher, right? Let's just say that as a researcher, you're gathering all the information that is there at your disposal, and you're writing the books or whatever you're doing, putting documentaries together based on the information that is out there to the public. It's not his fault somebody else was hoaxing stuff. You know what I mean? So I don't really blame it on him so much. But yeah, there's a lot of flack that's coming his way and the way of a lot of people because of that movie Mirage Men. But even that movie's kind of suspect, don't you think? And I was even kind of like talking to Alejandro about that because the guy's coming forward saying that he hoaxed all this stuff, but who's not to say that he's not just being shut up by the secret shadow government or something?
Well, I haven't seen it yet, so don't give me any spoilers.
No spoilers. I just started watching it myself there the other night, and I haven't finished it either. But yeah, I mean, who knows, right? I mean, it could be any clandestine, group or agency that are trying to throw a monkey wrench in this thing. That's the way it usually has been. I mean, the UFO field is, as much as it's filled with good information, there's a lot of disinformation that's been thrown into the mix to throw people off the scent and off the trail.
Yep, and that's something that we love to get into here on the show is the disinformation that's out there, and how to spot it and how to debunk it, and not that we're debunkers, but there is a lot of clutter and mess in the world of ufology. And I know that on your show you've had a lot of people on. You did Unified Field Radio. Tell us a little bit of your background doing that show and some of your favorite guests that you've had on.
Well, I guess the way it all started for me. I would say that it started from a UFO sighting of, in my early life when I was 9, but it actually goes further back than that, and maybe I'll touch upon that in a bit. But my mother was always very well read in the areas of the occult and the unknown, and she always had really cool stuff in her library, like George Orwell's 1984, and she always had a book on UFOs or flying saucers. She was also a fundamentalist, basically, near the end of her life. There's been a bit of history. There's some stories in the family on her side that she was a little bit psychic, that my aunt might be a little bit psychic, and who knows how far back it goes. My aunt to this day, tells me that she receives visions and paints them, which is kind of unusual. She paints her visions, and that's how they come through for her. So I guess, from an early age, I was kind of introduced to the idea that the world is more magical and mystical than, most people think or understand that it is. That was the beginning. And later in life, like I said, I was on a fishing trip out here. I've grown up all over kind of the place. I spent some years in California and Toronto and out west and Canada and the U.S. But, my first few years, I was...
Switch it up a little! But if you think about it, a lot of these people put their time into doing the show and creating the show, and what they really do is they don't get paid for making the show, but the way they sell it to a network is that they get a piece of the commercials that are being aired inside the show. So it's very possible that none of them are getting paid up front, but they're getting their royalty checks at the end of every episode airing.
That would make sense. I mean, if anybody would know, it would be the business-savvy Bill Burns, right? He would be a cool guy to talk about if we were curious enough.
Well, I don't know. Is anybody that we know that's related to him in the chat room today? I'm not looking right now.
No, Nancy's not in there, so we can't ask her. But I could always bring it up to Nancy in private and see what her answer would be.
Yeah, come on, let's get it. Let's get it totally.
I know when they did UFO Hunters, I know he told me once that they weren't really getting paid a whole lot of money. I think just they were covering like the trips and stuff like that, and maybe a couple $100, $600, $500-$600, $1,000 maybe a month or something, or every few weeks. I don't know. I mean, I'm not too sure on the logistics of how much they were getting paid, but he said it wasn't a whole lot, and that was for UFO Hunters, which was a very good show. I mean, they never caught really anything. They really didn't, but it was still fun. It was a funny show to watch.
One or two seasons?
Oh, it was great.
I don't remember. Did they last 1 or 2 seasons?
I think 2 seasons.
A couple, for sure.
Yeah, 2 seasons, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good show. It really was. It was funny because doing the show of Feature Theater with Bill and Nancy and producing for them and stuff and sitting in and listening to them go back and forth. Yeah, Bill is a very funny dude. He just doesn't know it. Like, he missed the boat. He should have been like a stand-up comic because he can be really funny and he doesn't go all the way with it. And Nancy too, like they have this really good way of bouncing back and forth. Yeah. It's pretty funny. So
yeah, they have a really fun
shout out
show.
to them. Yeah,
so really the next thing on PSN Radio, it's the UFO Funny Show.
Yeah.
Actually, I did have a UFO comedian named Jeff Tyranny or something like that. His name, Tim Tyranny, Jeff Tyranny, something like that. And he's actually the UFO comedian, and he was on my show a while back, like a year ago.
Wow.
And really not funny at all.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it.
He's never been back. He's a nice guy, but he's never been back.
Let's get a whole bunch of abductees in the audience and put a UFO comedian up on top and watch how easily he gets lynched.
Yeah, no, this guy, well, like I said, he's a nice guy, so I don't want to say bad things about him, but the jokes just were not there, man. And that's in the archive. Anybody wants to, check out that archive, you sure can. It's in there. I think it's in the Jackal's Head archive, so if you want to listen to that, it's on the jackalshead.com page.
That's funny.
There you go.
Yeah, Bill Burns is a super, hyper intelligent guy. I mean,
really is.
He knows a little bit of everything about everything. I mean, he's been involved in UFOs, TV, radio, television, I think, in Cape Breton. But when I came back later in life, around 9 years old, this is a little island off the coast here in Nova Scotia. My sister and I and my father were fishing, and I saw a humongous fireball coming in through the sky. It felt like it was the size of the full moon, but it was probably about half that size. And we watched it coming down to the sky. I alerted my sister and my father, and they caught wind of it just as it was coming over the treetops and down into the woods. And it looked like it should have landed somewhere or hit or made an impact at some point beyond the horizon. My father said that he had called the authorities. No one had seen the object or tracked the object. We all clearly saw it. So that was kind of my first foray. I was about 9 years old at that point. So starting with the roots of my mother, who was basically I guess she was the genetic line of a family of Hungarian and German acrobats that traveled the world, and her occult beginnings and understandings, and all the way up to that fishing trip when I was age 9, kind of indoctrinated me into the whole field. I've had a few more sightings of strange things since then, but that kind of led to me eventually culminating in starting my own show locally here at a university radio station.
So it all started at the university. Now, how long have you been doing the show?
Well, I'm kind of on sabbatical from that right now.
Yes, you are.
I mean, Angel, like, you can invest so much time and effort into this field that is very, fruitless financially. It's really difficult. I mean, you're never going to make a dime in this field unless you're
you're lucky if you break even. I mean,
Yeah.
you're super lucky if you break even. You're super lucky if you can get anything to pay for itself.
Even if you're Giorgio Tsoukalos, you're probably not making anything. His hairspray alone would cost half the budget. Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder he should get royalties for all the memes they put up with his face on it.
Yeah, they should. You should really do that.
I wonder how much he gets paid to actually be on Ancient Aliens and all these shows that he's on. Because, of course, they pay him at least a little bit of scratch.
Do you think?
They have to. I mean, he's the show. I mean, these people are the ones that go on there. They make the show.
I hope so.
People on there.
They use his likeness. A lot of the show is
well,
modeled after.
I'm sure we could reach out to Bill Burns and ask how much they make, for the show.
Bill was the first guy I thought about.
But how it usually works with a lot of these shows on the Hitler Channel is oh, I'm sorry, I did it again, didn't I? Sorry.
No, you're correct. Go ahead. Continue.
It is, because at 2 o'clock every single day during the week, it is always something on Hitler's World War II something or other.
You're not kidding. That's true.
And, that's why I call it the Hitler Channel, because I'm too damn tired of it. Mm-hmm. And by the way, if anybody from the History Channel is listening,